Hi everyone, my name is Shimri Winters and welcome to today's presentation. Today we're going to talk about the London Business School, and it's actually my favorite topic because I happen to be a London Business School alumnus. So just a bit about myself and then I'll dig in about the presentation. My name is Shimri Winters. I have a computer science degree. I worked as a programmer. That was until my London Business School MBA. Post-MBA, I went to work in consulting and then in some big IT companies. And I've been at ARINGO for 7 years. I also used to interview for London Business School as an alumnus. We'll talk about that a lot. This is my only marketing slide. I work at ARINGO. We're very good. We help candidates get into top MBA programs. This is what we do. Check out our site, aringo.com. Great stats. That was my marketing slide. We even have some stats. Great. I'm a very marketing person. Okay, so this is the agenda. I want to say that you have on the side, this is a YouTube live session, and you have on the side the comments. You can start writing at the bottom. You can start writing comments. I will answer all your questions at the end of this live YouTube session. I also wanted to say that this is our part 1 session about London Business School. And if you're watching YouTube live, we have another session in 1 week exactly. If you're watching this not live, here at the bottom, there's your London Business School number 2 session that I'll be recording next week. So this is part 1, and this is very important because some of you might not need part 1 or some of you might not need part 2. Part 1 is a very general, basic statistics about London Business School. Okay, so I just wanted to tell you a bit about the school, about the rankings of the school, the different programs, some basic facts, and who's London Business School, what are they looking for, who are you, who should you be if you want to apply for London Business School, and a few other things, money, and what do you need to do to apply. Okay, so this is today. It's a very basic, let's call it beginner's session. I just wanted to tell you about our next week's session, which would be about how to crack the London Business School application. And in that session, I'm going to talk about how do you write the best CV for London Business School, how do you answer London Business School essays, how can you help your recommenders for London Business School, the online application London Business School, the interview, the online interview. So I will actually touch the elements of the application and give you, let's call it tips and tricks about writing the best application that you can for the London Business School. But all that won't be today. And if you know everything you need to know about London Business School, you can ignore this session. But if you don't, I hope you enjoy it. As I said, I am an alumnus and I miss it very much. So just some fact sheets about London Business School. Let's start with the picture. It does look like a palace. It does. And this is a real picture of London Business School. And I can already see your questions, to keep them coming in. Okay, I can see them. And if the person that took this picture would turn around 180 degrees, he would see the Regent's Park lake. London Business School is exactly opposite Regent's Park and exactly opposite the nicest place in the park, which is the huge lake. It's an amazing place to be at. And I think it's a very inspirational place to be at. So when you study there, you do feel a bit like in a palace and you study with the best people in the world. And I think that's also part of the magic that happens. And we'll talk about various advantages of London Business School. And I think we can all agree that the location is a huge advantage. It's quite an established business school. Again, you can see it's going to be celebrating 60 years in 3 years. The main campus, like I said, is opposite Regent's Park. London Business School has actually been expanding, and in the last couple of years, it actually bought 2 more properties. Didn't build them, but they bought them. One is very near, and one is a couple hundred yards from London Business School, the new Sami Offer building. And this actually shows that the school is really strong and it can deal with more students, with more capacity, with more programs than it used to a few years ago. And it's also expanding, and it's great because in my years, we used to fight for every study room and auditorium, because the facilities were limited, and now the facilities are, huge. So amazing for the school. Huge network of alumni from lots and lots of countries, and I've met alumni from 5 continents through my work, like when I needed people in South America or in Asia or in the Middle East or in Europe. I use my London Business School contacts. The alumni network is so vast, and soon I'll show you where they all work, and then you will see across all geographies. There's lots of scholarships. Okay, we'll discuss money, unfortunately. And there's a lot of clubs, and we will discuss those as well. Okay, so that was just very, very general stuff about London Business School. London Business School offers to date 12 different degrees. I just want to say, I can see already some of the questions are around the Master in Management degree. Again, this is a very, very general presentation. You have to wait till next week for my specific one. A very general presentation about the school. So I'm not going to dig in too much to any of the degrees. There's one degree that I will talk a bit more about, and about the curriculum, which is the full-time MBA. Okay, but I'm not going to actually go into how do you apply to a Master in Finance, what are the benefits, etc. These things will happen in my next presentation. This presentation, again, just about the school. And I won't say that again. I've said that a few times. And these are basically the degrees. What I think that, what I know London Business School did is these placements of the degrees are not by mistake. So if you can see, like in this little table that we have, that the MBA degree is kind of in the middle. Okay, and this is the full-time MBA degree. And for the full-time MBA degree, you need, or the average is around 5 years of experience. Okay, so if you have 5 years, around 5 years, it can be 3, it can be 8, it can be 2, it can be 10, but around 5 years of full-time experience, an MBA degree might be for you. Okay, and you would be a candidate, at least from your age perspective, in terms of your professional years of perspective. There's also degrees for candidates that have less experience, and that is the Master in Management degrees. And these are degrees that are starting to be more and more popular. Most top European schools are offering them. Some of the American schools are offering them. And Master in Management, Master in Analytics, these are the degrees which are for people with up to 2 years of experience. So if you're just graduating from your undergraduate degree, or you have maybe 1 year of experience and some internships, you're still a bit young in terms of your professional experience for an MBA degree. But if you want to study at London Business School, you can definitely study for a Master in Management or Master in Analytics degree. On the other side of experience, if you're on the high end of experience, there's also a couple of degrees which are meant for you, which are either the full-time London Business School Sloan program, which is here at the bottom corner, that says London Business School Sloan Masters in Leadership and Strategy. And that, I like to call it midlife crisis MBA. Don't tell them. Like the average age there is, I think, 39 or something like that. You have to have more than 10 years of full-time experience. That's the minimum. And I think the average, again, I didn't really check. I think it's 17 or 18 years of full-time experience. So you have the degrees for people with up to 2 years of experience, then probably between 2 to 10, and then above 10. And those are all management degrees, full-time management degrees. London Business School only offers one more type of degree, which is, so apart from that, there's the part-time, let's call it MBA degree, which is the executive MBA. So at London Business School, there's no part-time MBA, but the executive MBA is a part-time MBA. And here, there's a couple of options as well. There's the executive MBA at London. There's an executive MBA in the Dubai campus. And there's also a joint program for London Business School Columbia, and there's another joint program with Hong Kong University. So there's lots of joint programs. An executive MBA or part-time degree means you come and study, you come on campus, and you study once every 2 weeks or once a month, depends exactly on which program. And it's a part-time degree. You work throughout the program. And again, it's for candidates with a bit more experience. I think the average age is around 33. so you can kind of understand the caliber of the people and the work experience. So those are the executive MBAs. And I said, apart from an MBA or Master in Management, we have these Master in Finance degrees. Basically, we have the full-time and the part-time Master in Finance, and that's it. There's no age here. I've seen candidates which had 12 years of experience. I've seen candidates which had 3 years of experience. Again, this is just a finance degree. And that's it. Very small school, basically 2 types of degrees, management or finance. Okay? I'm happy to answer questions. I can see there's starting to be some questions, and I can start answering them at the end of this session. Again, this session won't be too long because we're just touching some stats, and our next session will talk deeper into the actual application. So a lot of people ask me, great, like tell me the ranking of London Business School, or what are the 5 best business schools in the world? Well, in my calculation, I think there's about 25 top 10 business schools in the world. Yes, I have an MBA, but I'm not very strong in my maths, apparently. The reason is there's just so many rankings, okay? And if you look in the Economist MBA rankings, it's very different than the global MBA rankings of the Financial Times. Okay, so it's very hard to say what's the best business school, or what's the top, or what are the top 3 business schools. But I think we can all agree that London Business School is one of the best business schools in the world. Okay, is it number 2 or number 3 or number 6? Who cares? Okay, it's a very, very good business school. I've put here some very not relevant information. Is it the number? And if you check the Financial Times, it's currently ranked 2nd in the world for the global MBA. Wow, we're so happy it's not 3rd. It's the same, okay? It's one of the best schools in the world by any ranking. And I think if you talk to any employer or any person who kind of knows top business schools, London Business School will be up there. Okay, we're very modest. We don't like to talk about the ranking so much. Now, I do have 2 slides about the full-time MBA program, because I think most people on this chat, on this YouTube session, would be interested in the full-time MBA program. I'm sorry I didn't prepare additional slides for the other programs, but I think you can get this kind of information just from London Business School website. It's just the facts. So this is a very unique aspect for London Business School. This is the second one, okay? The first one is great. The program starts in September. The unique aspect is it's a very flexible program. It's flexible also in terms of what you will learn, and I'll show you that in the next slide, but it's flexible in the length of the program. You can actually complete the program in 15, 18, or 21 months. You can decide, do you want to do an internship, or do you want to study in the summer semester? You can decide, do you want to spread your degree and take a lot of electives or fewer electives per semester and more projects, or do you just want to bung it all up and try and finish within 15 months? So I don't know many of the other top MBAs that have this flexibility, not just regarding what you will learn, but also regarding the length of the program. Huge advantage. By the way, you don't need to tell London Business School admissions at the beginning if you're, how many months you're going to be studying in a program. I think you do in the online application need to take what are your intentions, but obviously they can change. It's okay. I think the biggest advantage of London Business School is the location. Okay, if I look at the curriculum of London Business School and I compare it to some other top business schools in Europe or some other top business schools in the US, I find that it's very similar. Most of them are teaching very similar things. And you will see at London Business School, you will see professors from Harvard, you will see case studies from Wharton, you will see students from all around the world. You will learn from books which are very similar to the books you would learn from Stanford. Okay, so the curriculum is very, very similar. And I think really one of the main differentiators for London Business School is the location. Still, I'll talk about the rest. There's many electives to choose from. I just didn't know what I wanted to do at London Business School, and I knew I didn't want finance, and I really didn't get a lot of the marketing stuff, unfortunately. And I just thought, entrepreneurship sounds really interesting. And I think I took 6 or 7 electives in various topics of entrepreneurship, like managing the growing business and strategy innovation. And we did a joint project with London School of Arts, and lots of things to do with entrepreneurship, because that's what interests me. On the other hand, my best friend, he did like 8 courses in finance. And some of my other friends from my study group just did a very diverse kind of studies, which they studied lots and lots of things. They're electives, you can elect from them. Tuition, unfortunately, is very expensive. As you saw before, salaries were, not salaries, sorry, there were a lot of scholarships in last year. And generally, a London Business School does have a lot of scholarships to give candidates that can't pay this tuition. By the way, most of these things are not just for the full-time MBA. Most of these things that I'm discussing now are for the other programs as well. Just before this YouTube presentation, I spoke to a client of ours who's starting the Master in Finance and part-time, and he got a 30% scholarship. Okay, so even in the Master in Finance, even in the part-time degree, there are scholarships. I do want to mention that in the more senior degrees, there's fewer scholarships. And if you go to the Executive MBA, there's really few scholarships, and in the Sloan program as well. So the more senior you get and the more senior program you apply to, there will be less scholarships. Just be honest about that. You can see the average salary. Again, very, very hard to understand what the average salary is. Euro, pound, dollar keeps changing. But every source that we checked, we sourced something else. But this is what I think we found this on the Financial Times or something like that. Very, very international school. Okay, I think London is a very, very international city, and the school kind of represents that. There aren't a lot of British students at London Business School. Okay, so you can see here, 89% students are international, and that's true. So if I look at my own study group at London Business School, I had a lady in my study group, a lady from Bulgaria, a lady from Russia, a lady from Poland, and this was a long time ago. We had someone from Britain and someone from Bahrain. So a very, very diverse, this is just in my private study group, a very diverse group. And obviously, the class was also represented. We had Americans in the class. We had Indian candidates, Chinese candidates. From all over the world, people come to London Business School to study. By the way, both in the full-time MBA and in the executive MBAs as well. We discussed average work experience, alumni, great, amazing school. I just prepared one kind of, we're not going to go through this rigorous table, but I just wanted to kind of show you what a full-time MBA looks like. Basically, very, very roughly, again, you can pause this and watch it whenever you want. The first year is core courses, okay? And an MBA is a very, very, very wide type of course. So there's a bit of management and a bit of marketing, and there's a lot of soft skills that you work on. I don't know, presentation skills, ethics, things like that. Then there's microeconomics and macroeconomics and marketing and entrepreneurship. And so there's lots and lots of core courses like that. Entrepreneurship, did I say? Yeah, very important. Then in the second term, you start having more and more core courses, but then they kind of obviously go one level higher. And there's also the London Cap. The London Cap is kind of a hands-on business experience. It's amazing. You go out to the world and you work with a company, with a real company, and you work on their business issues. Their issues might be marketing or strategy or HR issues or financial issues, etc., etc. And you really go out and you work with a real company. And then it's completely kind of tailor-made to whatever you want with all the electives. And you can choose from whichever electives you want. So there's some streams that you can kind of say, okay, I want to be in a finance stream, or you can just kind of, like I did, just build your own electives as you choose. And again, then you can decide how long you want to take the course. You remember, you can finish it within 15 years or 18 or 21. And in the second year, there's also the global business experience. So you remember the London Cap, which you went and worked with a London-based company. In the global business experience, the GBE, you go to a city around the world, and you go and you work with a firm in that city. I went to Hyderabad in India, and obviously you can see here the list of cities. It's from Lima to Tel Aviv to Tokyo to Johannesburg. Okay, so there's a very wide selection, and you go and you do a project with a local company. I was actually watching a film last night which reminded me something, because the company in this film was very similar to the company that I worked with in my global business experience. These things are life experiences, not just memories and fun, which there's a lot of memories and fun, but also life business experiences. And there's a lot of things that I go back to my studies and think, what did I learn there, and can I implement that lesson in my day-to-day work? So that's just a bit about how the structure is, but again, in a very wide way to think about it. The first half of your course, whether it's Master in Management, even Master in Finance, is very similar. Sloan program, Executive MBA program, or the full-time MBA program. The first part of this program will be core courses, and the second part, again, depends exactly what program, would be electives. And in the electives, you can also study with Master in Finance, Master in Management, MBAs, Executive MBAs, Sloan program. You will actually study with the diverse group of students from London Business School. Okay, this is kind of from London Business School side. They say kind of, okay, is it right for you? This is kind of what we're looking for. So, we're looking for ambitious people. I think that makes sense, okay? It's very hard to get into London Business School. The degree, it's a very sought after degree. We're offering this for very ambitious people, okay? The class is very diverse, and we'll talk about this in our next session, in the part 2 session, about, how to write a great application. But one of the things that London Business School are looking for are a global outlook. Now, it's okay if you haven't worked abroad, but they would like some experience with working with diverse teams, maybe a diverse client or something like that. I can already see some of the questions are about that, and I'll answer them shortly. By the way, this presentation is very short. We have another 5-10 minutes, and then I'll answer questions. So we're okay for time. Yeah, quite quick. Okay. A few other things that they're looking for is, again, they really want to understand why you want an MBA, or why do you want a Master in Finance, or why do you want the Sloan program, okay? So they kind of want to understand, why are you looking for this challenge, okay? You live far away in Asia and you want to move to London. Why do you want to do this? How will their program enhance you, accelerate you from a business perspective, maybe from a personal perspective? Very interested in you as a person, very interested in you from a professional perspective. And that's what they would like to hear. And obviously they will check if you have a very strong professional experience, academic experience, personal experience, etc. We said around 5 years. And then that's what they're looking for. Obviously what they're offering, it's a very, very dynamic experience. It's amazing, very holistic. You look at so many factors around business, okay, from soft skills. And by the way, when I speak to my fellow alumni and my colleagues, we recently had our reunion, unfortunately on Zoom, but I'm hoping to get to the school very quickly. And we asked, like, what's the one course you like the most, or what's the one thing you took out of the school? And a lot of them take the soft skills, like the organization behavior skills and things like that, and less the technical, how do you read a spreadsheet skill that we also gained at London Business School. Obviously, the faculty are amazing. In my year, there were 2 Nobel Prize winners that were teaching. I won't mention their names. One was a very good lecturer. The other one was less. So I won't mention their name. I'm joking. Amazing, amazing professors. World-class, staff in every single way. And again, there's so many hands-on experiences. It's not just a sit and learn environment. It's a sit and learn, now go out and show me what you've learned, and show me how do you use these theoretical concepts in real life. Like we said, there's a global business experience, there's the London Cup, there's so many more models and so many more joint experiences And because you're at London and such a big hub, and we'll talk about that, it's just amazing. If I look beyond the academic experience, there's so many stuff. Okay, so I think I was in the sailing club. I brought my partner once to the salsa club. I stepped on her toes a few times. Cheese and wine, I didn't go to that. Obviously, there's every single sports club you can think of. Every nation has their own club as well. So I've been to every single party you can think of. Every New Year, I know all the dates. And there's, of course, very professional clubs as well. It can be private equity club, strategy club, family business club, real estate club, things like that. Many, many clubs to join, and that's where a lot of the magic happens, a lot of the networking happens. Obviously, there's a lot of career assistance at London Business School. And some of this is done with student conferences, and some of this is done by the career services at London Business School, where their whole purpose is to help you find a job at the end of your degree. There's professional trips, so there's like Silicon Valley trip. There's fun trips. In my year, there was an expedition to the Everest, but there was a Japanese trek, for example. That's quite fun. Lots of competitions, lots of networking opportunities. And I think one of the most important things, it's a very family-friendly school. My partner, which wasn't my wife at the time, got a card that she can go into the library and go into the gym and things like that, which are worth quite a lot of money in heart of London. And she was invited to the events. There's a very famous weekly Sun Donors event, which basically you drink a lot of beer like you do at London Business School, and the partners are invited. There's a partners club, so there's a lot of opportunities for partners as well. We're nearly there, guys. We only have a couple more slides. I don't want to start crying. I think I really miss it. The most important advantage of London Business School is the location. Okay, and a bit about London. We found all these random statistics, like there's more American banks in London than in New York, and more Japanese banks than in Tokyo. Okay, but you can take that for every single industry that you can think of. You like sports? Go England. Okay, so if you're not watching this live, finals of the Euro. Do you like art? I think London's probably one of the most hubs for ballet museums. Any art you can think of. You're interested in consulting. You're interested in finance. You're interested in tech. You're interested in entrepreneurship. London is probably the headquarters of the world, or at least of Europe, for your specific interest. So definitely a huge advantage over other business schools, which I won't mention in this session, but are in the heart of a nice forest in the middle of nowhere. So, for example, at London Business School, if you're interested in private equity, and I was, a lot of times the private equity club might organize like breakfast with. And this is just an alumni, 2 or 3 alumni that are on the way to work, and they visit the school in the morning. Okay, I'm not talking about when Bill Gates comes or when Jack Welch comes to sign their new books. So they do a travel through all the business schools. I'm talking about the actual location of London Business School gives you so many opportunities to interact with the industry that you are interested in and interact with the fields that you're interested in. Huge advantage. Okay, we're nearly there. We tried to look for some statistics about employers and about industries, and I went to LinkedIn. I think that makes sense. Okay, most of MBA alumni will be on LinkedIn. The thing about LinkedIn is, remember that London Business School is going to celebrate 60 years in 3 years, so 57 years, and industries are changing. So when you see here consulting 40%, remember that the tech industry was very small 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. And today already tech is huge in the school. Finance has gone down a bit. Consulting has gone down a bit. And also the diverse industry is very different. So when I studied at the school, there really were three cores. Okay, there were consulting was about a third, finance a third, and everything else was a third. That can be oil and gas. It can be book publishing. It can be pharma. Okay, it can be anything else. Now technology is a huge chunk, and I think technology will probably be one of maybe the number one industry in a year or two, with giants like Amazon and Google swallowing up London Business School MBAs and hiring lots of MBAs. So I would say there's 4 areas, and you could probably go into each of them. And a lot of times people tell me, oh, London Business School, it's a very finance-oriented school. It's not. It has everything in it. It has finance, but it has strategy, it has technology, it has marketing. It's a very, very diverse school. Again, I tried to look on LinkedIn, and remember, this is years and years of data. And yes, most of the alumni today live in the UK. I think that makes sense. A lot of times people ask me, should I go to London Business School if my dream is to work in the US? And I try and answer them, I like black and white answers. So I try and say, no, that's a mistake. Okay, you can see that 13% work in the US, okay, and live today in the US. But how many of those people are Americans? How many of those people worked for a US company before London Business School? Again, there's so many statistics, it's going to be hard to get out of it. I promise you that a very, very high number of I won't mention a school, but top US business schools work in the US, higher than 13%. So if your aim is to work in the US, no, go to a US school. But if your aim is to be in one of the top global business schools in the world, again, you can see there's lots of opportunities afterwards. You don't have to live and work in London. Definitely London Business School is a more global hub and more a global school than the US school. By the way, the US schools tend to have 60 to 70% of the students being American, versus London Business School that we saw 89% of foreigners. Okay, so it's a very, very international school. Here are some of the recruiters. Okay, it's a slide from a couple of years ago from London Business School. I think you will see there's both Google, so tech, also Bain, consulting, Burger King, let's put them as other. By the way, the job at Burger King was a management rotation program. Every 6 months you go and you do another job, and it's not 6 months flipping burgers and 6 months cutting tomatoes. It's 6 months working in the strategy, 6 months working in real estate, 6 months working in marketing, 6 months going to a new country and helping them open branches. And then after 2 years, you kind of sit with them and decide where you want to work. An amazing, amazing job. Someone from my class went to GE, to a management rotation program as well. I think you can see there's lots and lots of companies. I actually took it off, but in this year that I took this slide from, I think it was 3 years ago, there were over 200 recruiters that came on campus to recruit students, and most of them had more than one availability. So you understand there's lots and lots of recruiters. I just put here the top recruiters from LinkedIn, what I saw. And I think you can just basically see the big companies of the world, which you would probably see a very, very similar list for any other top business school. I don't think the list changes much, whether it be the big consulting firms, the big banks, or generally the big companies or the big techies. Of course, there's a lot of small recruiters as well, but they won't be in the top recruiters. But if your aim is to go to a startup or to a small company, that will happen as well. Okay, we're nearly at the end. I just want to give you okay, you're fixed on London Business School. What do I need to do next? So let's keep the deadlines in mind. Again, these are the full-time MBA deadlines. They're very similar to some of the other programs, so the Master in Finance and the Sloan, kind of similar. Executive MBAs also, there's a stream that starts in January, so I'm ignoring that for a sec. For the streams that start in September, the first part is round one. Sorry, this is round one. What are these rounds? The rounds mean that you can apply by this date, and all the envelopes that will be sent, all the applications that will be sent to this specific date will be opened on this date. That means if the round is on September 15th, if you've missed September 15th, you will only be considered in round two, which is in January. So first of all, keep in mind the rounds. When you ask London Business School, they would say that the chances are kind of similar in all the rounds. When you ask them again after maybe a beer or two, they'll probably say that the 3 first round chances are similar, and round 4 chances might be lower, because round 4 is at the end. The class is kind of complete, and they're maybe looking for specific people to make the class more diverse. I would say apply as early as you can. Okay, if you're ready for round one, apply in round one. On the other hand, if you're not ready, for example, if you haven't maximized your GMAT score, round two plus 20 points in the GMAT beats round one. Okay, so only apply when you feel you're ready. But if you're ready, apply as early as you can. And what happens is when you apply, usually it takes about a month till London Business School analyzes your application. And then you will hear, have you received an interview or not? If you received an interview, it takes another week or 2 or 3 till you actually get interviewed. Interview are usually by alumni at London Business School in the full-time MBA program, in Master in Finance as well. In some of the programs, for example, Executive MBA, London Business School admissions like to interview. It really depends on timing, who's available, and COVID situation. But basically, in most of the programs, alumni will interview. And about a month after the interview, you will hear the decision, which is a final decision. So again, I got this from the site. Submit. Hopefully, you'll get an interview. Hopefully, you'll get the final decision. And the whole process can be around 3 months, like we said, from the beginning of September. So early December, you'll hear the final result. If you apply in January, I think it's up to April, and so on for round 3 and 4. Again, this is nearly the last slide. What do you need to apply? Again, this is the full-time MBA, which is actually kind of similar to the other applications as well. Well, let's call them the criteria to apply. Are you even eligible? The eligibility to apply is to have a minimum number of years of experience. Like we said, this is for the full-time MBA. I would also put that in the maximum. If you have 15 years of experience, you're too experienced for the full-time MBA. If you have 4 years of experience, you don't have enough experience for the executive MBA. So first of all, look at the class profile, look at what the school is looking for. Okay, we have those 12 degrees that we showed before, apply to the right degree. This is actually a funny one, but an undergraduate degree is not a must for London Business School, unlike some American school or most of the American schools. I've had quite a few, probably around 2 candidates every year without an undergraduate degree that got into London Business School. I have to say these are exceptional candidates, and the school had to love their application. Otherwise, their chances were low. How do you do that? Yeah, they had great GMAT, they had a great life story, and a lot of professional experience. So it's doable even without an undergraduate degree. You need a GMAT. There's no way around it. There are no waivers. There won't be any waivers, as far as I know. You can use a GRE as an equivalent score. That's fine. But you will need a GMAT for London Business School, for London Business School Executive MBA. You can also use an EA for Executive MBAs, if you know what that is. For the Sloan program, which is the very senior program, I have seen GMAT waivers, but that's only for the very senior program. And also, that's on a case-by-case. If English is not your mother tongue or you didn't study in English, you will need a language ability test, either TOEFL or IELTS, and there's no minimum for the score, and you don't need a very high score for that eligibility. If you have that, if you have those criterias and you're eligible, now you need to apply. Again, this is all for our next session. But basically, what do you need to apply? You need some essays, okay? So every degree, they have different essays. Executive MBA have 3 essays this year. Full-time have 2, or 1 plus 1 optional. Sloan, I think, had 3. So every degree has a couple of essays, and they're different between the degrees. You'll need a 1-page CV. I can't emphasize that enough, 1 page. I worked with a 56-year-old, very senior guy on the Sloan program, 1-page CV, okay? You need to give 2 referees, and they will give references on your behalf. You don't submit your recommendations, you just give their names, and they will be submitting them directly. And you need to pay an application fee and get your school transcripts. So next session, which is in a week's time, if you're watching this live, same day, same time, and if not, it's going to be down here. We'll talk about that. How do you build a stellar application for London Business School? How do you stand out in your essays, in your CV, in your recommendations, everything. But I'll leave that for your thoughts. Next session, come with a lot of questions. And I will discuss everything there. How do you network? How do you do everything end to end? How do you apply to London Business School? That was it from me. Again, my name is Shimri Winters. You also have my details here. Check out ARINGO anytime. You can send me your profile request if you want. I do like CVs and GMATs before I give my view, if that's okay. And as promised, I will be answering some questions. So thank you, everyone. And I'm actually going to scroll up and we're going to answer some questions, and GMAT Club are going to help to put them on the screen, and we'll start answering some questions. Okay, I'm not answering my question, the question why my colleague from NCAD isn't here. I'm not answering my question about that because we don't talk about NCAD at London Business School sessions. So I'm just going to start answering the questions. Someone asked about MIM, again, a Master in Management. I think it's a great degree. It's such an interesting degree for people who have under 2 years of experience. And I really think that's a great degree. And here we already have the question. Can I give any tips for the Master in Management? Again, check it out in 2 weeks. Sorry, next week in the next session. I'll give some tips about the Master in Management as well. I'll just say very briefly that if you have less professional experience, okay, you need to show your other factors. And another factor can be your academics. You're very strong in university. It can be your personal life. You have some kind of hobby, or you have some kind of extracurricular. You have a very high GMAT. You did a very interesting internship. Okay, so we can't check as an interviewer. I can't check your 5 years of experience, but I will check other aspects. So that's my only Master in Management tip. Show your other aspects as well. Okay, we're scrolling to the next ones. Okay, executive MBAs and scholarships. So I'm sorry, I can talk about the executive MBA. We actually have at ARINGO an executive MBA team. So if you, I won't mention your name, but if you want to send me your email with your profile, I can, GMAT or executive assessment, I can help you out there. I just want to be very clear, executive MBAs have very few scholarships. Okay, sorry, that's life. You're a senior, you're doing an executive MBA. The reasons are mixed. One reason is around 50% of the class are sponsored by employers. Another reason is they just want to give the scholarships to the young full-time MBAs, and you're working, etc. There is a women's scholarship. It's one, and actually last year, 2 of our women LBS executive MBA, they were in the same class. They both won this one. It sounds amazing. No, it's not, because they had to split the money, basically. So, and if I remember correctly, there's one more executive MBA scholarship. So basically, there's 2 scholarships in a class of 70 or 80. So there aren't many executive MBA scholarships. I'm sorry about that. You'll have to try and fund it yourself. Okay, next question. International job opportunities. And that's interesting. So I think you saw the international job opportunities, the job opportunities that I showed. Sorry, so you're asking for international students. So all those recruiters that came to campus recruit London Business School students. Like we saw, 90% are international. Okay, so they're coming, they know you're international. They won't even ask. They know you're international. You don't need to have a British citizenship. The employers will, if they want to recruit you, will worry about your visa, okay? These are big recruiters. They know what they're doing. They know which forms to send. They know which lawyers to use. And for them, it's just money, okay? So I think it costs them like £10,000. I know it sounds a lot, but for Amazon, that's a given, okay? They want you, so they will hire you, and they will arrange your whole visa process. So if you're international, if you are an international student, I would be very relaxed about finding a job at the end of your London Business School class. The recruitments are over 97%. I didn't check that out, but very high, and you'll be okay. The hard thing is to get into London Business School. Okay, finding the job afterwards, I can't promise it will be Barclays if you want Barclays, but if you want a finance job, you will find. If you want a consulting job, you'll find one. Even without being British. Okay, next question. Brand management. Okay, so I'm not exactly clear about the question here. You're asking what should we choose? So I'm not sure. Okay, it actually doesn't. Again, so I'm assuming not to choose the finance degree, and then you have the management degrees. Now, should you choose a master in management or an MBA or an executive MBA or a Sloan program? This is more to do with your professional experience. If you have under 2 years MIM, if you have 2 to 10 years MBA, and more Sloan. And if you want to do a part-time degree while you work and you have the support from your employer, at least time-wise, then maybe an executive MBA. The curricular might be very similar. Okay, you learn core courses, electives, etc. It's more of the format and the fellow students that study with you. So it really depends on you, not on the industry that you want to get into. Very good question. Someone asked me if they look at if adcoms look at your academics. Okay, very good question, and the answer is yes. Okay, so adcoms will look at your undergraduate degree. They're actually less interested in the undergraduate degree score. So if you went to a French school, your score might be 84, and if you went to an American score, your GPA might be 3.3. So that doesn't mean much. What's 84 and what's 3.3? And did you learn sociological studies, or did you learn computer science? So there's so many degrees in so many universities. It's less important the score itself. It's more important, for example, the achievements you had. What did you study? What were I don't know, is your GPA top 10 or 15% of the class? That's more important than is it 84 or 83. A lot of candidates send me their high school achievements, and unfortunately, that's a bit too far behind for full-time MBA. For a master in management, yes, I've mentioned also high school achievements, but for a full-time MBA or executive MBA, that was a long time ago. And your undergraduate degree is where I would start looking, together with your GMAT, together with your professional experience. Okay, that's a very good question about marketing and luxury management specialization. So I think if you think about London, it's one of the capitals of the world, like I said, in everything. In one of the things is definitely brands and luxury brands, of course. And in my class, we had people go to Louis Vuitton and Gucci. And there's other luxury brands as well. And as you can see, I don't know all of them. And it's definitely one of the routes that you can go out from the London Business School. So great question. And yes, I think London Business School gives you lots of benefits if you're interested in luxury brands and luxury management. Okay. I really love this question from Oliver. So regarding, is London Business School, interested in candidates? Before I answer, are you interested in London Business School? Do you have a chance? Is London Business School interested in candidates that don't come from traditional backgrounds? Now, this is where I need to tell you something. Traditional is the worst. They want a diverse class. Okay, and actually, if you come from a traditional background, and if you come from an overrepresented background, okay, I am a white male, I was a computer engineer and a software programmer. That is a very common profile, okay? And I don't come from Fiji, and I'm not I don't come from a small African country, and I'm not a woman, okay? I don't know what diversity in my nationality could have been better. So again, if you're diverse in your personal background or in your professional or personal experience, this is an advantage. 2 years ago, I worked with a lawyer, the worst, not diverse, right? There's so many lawyers, no, not the worst. There's so many lawyers, and he was male and no diversity in his background. But then he told me I spoke to him and he didn't apply in that year. And then I spoke the year later when he was ready to apply and had a GMAT and said, actually, the job was a bit boring. I left to a startup that is trying to produce energy from sea waves. And I was like, yes, that's diverse. Okay. The business school does not have someone like you. Okay. So great question. And being diverse or coming from a non-traditional background is an advantage, not a disadvantage. Not a disadvantage. Having said that, if you have too much experience, let's say 15 or 20 years of experience, still in the business school has their perception about who should study in a full-time MBA, who should study in a Sloan program, who should study in a MIM. And I've seen this, like I've seen very senior people try to go to full-time MBAs. That won't work. Okay, I've seen very junior people try to go to MBAs. That also won't work. Okay, so keep in mind what they're looking for in terms of the number of years of professional experience. But in terms of what you've done, as diverse as possible. Wow, this Terrence has just asked probably the most difficult question. What's more important, GMAT or professional work experience? You knew you know to ask difficult questions. Not a simple answer, but still I'll try and answer. London Business School, look for 3 factors, okay? Like any other business school, education experience, professional experience, and extracurricular experience. Academics are worth around 35%, so around a third or a bit more of that 100% of your profile. And so the academics are around 35, but out of that, the GMAT would be probably 25, and your undergraduate degree, etc., would be maybe 10. So GMAT is very, very important. Okay, it's 25 out of 100. The problem is there's another, 65 or 60 or however they decide points to be grabbed, and they're on the table, and they are your professional experience, who you are, and it's very hard to say, what's more important. But I've had very, very good, let's talk a bit about the GMAT. London Business School average is just over 700. I've had very good candidates. Well, in the COVID year, last year, I had a 610 that got into the school. But if I ignore that for a second, I've had 650s, more than one, 660s, which usually I would say is the minimum for full-time MBA. Those I've had quite a few, 670s, more than a few. So I've definitely seen people with lower than average GMAT and much lower. Okay, 650 is much lower than the 700 plus average. And how did they get in? Because they had a lot of points in the other 2 factors. Okay, they had a very good professional experience and they were very interesting. So if you have 2 out of those 3 factors, academic, professional, and extracurricular activities, you should be okay. But again, also the 3rd factor can't be terrible. So even if you're a superstar, but you have a 500 GMAT, that's not going to work. Or if you have a 780 GMAT, and when I was a London Business School interviewer, I had a 780 interviewee, which I decided not to pass. Okay? He went to INSEAD. Why did I decide not to pass him? Because I wasn't impressed. Okay? And there's other factors as well beyond just the GMAT or your professional experience or your extracurricular. So there's 3 factors. I would love to see you good in all 3, but if one of them is mediocre, that's fine. If the other 2 are great. That was a long answer for a short question. Okay, this is a tough question about the placement post-COVID. Okay, and it's a very tough question. And the answer is it's actually quite good. So I was surprised. I actually spoke to people last year in the summer, and I was asking, like, how are the internships? And everybody was doing internships. They were online, very annoying, definitely not the experience I would want them to have, but definitely it's fine. So the placement is very similar to what it was. Everybody's learning to work remotely. Things were going back to normal a couple of weeks ago, and now starting to be crazy again. But basically speaking, placement's fine. Can you get into MIM without work experience? The answer is yes. The MIM are looking for 0 to 2 years of experience, so no problem. Okay, so now I'm trying to put the question. Next question. Okay. LBS grads who are not from the UK looking for opportunities in London in tech. Yeah. So I don't know what you're hearing. I'm not hearing that. I'm hearing that placement is good. And again, if you're going to London Business School because you really want to work at Amazon, I can't promise that, and no one can promise that. Maybe Amazon won't even recruit in the year that you graduated. Okay. But if you are interested in tech, and while London Business School, you join the tech club, and when the recruiting period comes, you go and interview for the tech companies, your chances to get into a tech company in London are very, very high. I always used to laugh at London, oh, is it, my colleagues that stayed in London and like, is it tech or not? And then my best friend from class worked in a very big tech company in London, which got sold to Microsoft for 200 million. And he works now for another tech company. And there's so much tech going on in London. Come on. So it's a great place. And again, I don't know what you heard, but I've seen graduates from every and any country find jobs at the end of London Business School in tech industry and other industries without the problem of their passport. Okay. Okay, a great question about age. Okay, so if you have a higher number of years of experience, the question is how high, and the question is what age. So again, I'm actually going to ignore age altogether, okay, because I've had candidates who studied a lot and started working at a older age. I'm working now with a 35-year-old who has 6 years of experience professionally. So I look at the years of experience, and I think if you have between 3 to 10 years of experience, this is a good range to apply to a full-time MBA. If you have more than that, that's starting to be an orange flag, okay? If you have more than 12 years, I would say that's starting to be close to a red flag. Now, of course, there'll be an exception. I'm sure if you asked adcoms, they would now come and say, wow, we have a 52-year-old. Okay, so there's like one exception out of 500 plus students. So generally speaking, if you have more than 10 years of experience, I would start looking at the Sloan program or other programs for senior candidates. Again, I'm ignoring your age. Yeah, so, Anmol, very specific question. Again, if you have a GMAT, you feel free to send me your CV. I'll give it a look. If you're applying for September 22, so I'm not sure if that's correct, that means you should be applying in September 21 already, in 2 months. And this is not a good time to change your job. This is a good time to work on your application. If you are applying next year for September 23 start date, then yeah, this is your time. If you can have 1 year of full-time work experience for in a front desk job or investment banking company or management job, great. If you're a MIM candidate and you don't have any experience, which might be the case, and you're applying now for next year, yes, definitely try and enroll to a job. And you can even tell in the business school, I'm just starting now my JP Morgan internship, and I want to apply for next year. They will take that into account, so that's a good thing as well. Yeah, so someone's asking a great question. Can you do an MBA after your MIM? Yeah, sure. So two unrelated two unrelated degrees. I've had a lot of candidates, more and more, again, these master in management degrees didn't exist 10 years ago. I think London Business School introduced it 6 or 7 years ago and was one of the first, and a lot of other schools have been introducing them in the last few years. So I've had more and more candidates have this degree. And suddenly on their CV, they went to undergraduate degree, maybe they worked a year or not, did a master in management degree, worked 3 years, and now they're applying for MBAs. Sure, no problem at all, and there's no problem. Next question. Extracurriculars. Okay, so remember, there's 3 areas, okay? Academics, professional experience, and extracurricular experience. And yeah, very important. So if you have a 730, great. If you have 3 years of relevant experience, great. You also need to be interesting, okay? Now, interesting sports can be fine. I like going to the gym. I like cooking. I like speaking Italian, okay? It doesn't have to be, I go to the animal shelter, which is very important, every week, and I take care of the dogs. It doesn't have to be that. It can be something, some kind of fun part or something to do with your well-being. That's absolutely fine. I think it's interesting. I think, when I used to interview for London Business School, I used to look for one thing. Is this person, an interesting person? Would I like him in my class? Of course he's academic. Of course he's professional. Now, would he add value? And again, if you're just all about work and academics, you're a dry cookie. You're a bit boring. So, I just want to see some hobbies and things like that. And yeah, London Business School will give a few points for that. Okay, next question. Okay, so I spoke a bit about this. If you're applying round 1 or round 2 or round 3 or round 4. So again, London Business School will say your chances are similar. I say apply as early as you can when you're ready. Okay, lots of advantages to apply early. First of all, there's a bit more waiting list. Okay, let's say the same number of candidates apply, which is not true, and the same number of candidates get an offer, which is not true. But there's more wait list in round 1, right? They'll give more people, they'll put them aside and start thinking what's happening with round 2. So there's more wait list. And B, I think it's from a project perspective, project management perspective, you really want to know what's happening with you. I'm assuming you're applying to a few schools. And let's say London Business School is your number 1 choice. You really want to know in November or maximum December what's happening. So I would always apply in round 1 if ready, but if you're not ready, apply in round 2. Not a big deal. I've had round 3s get in. I've even had round 4s get in. Yes. So same question. And Grace, if you don't come from an overrepresented country or do come from an overrepresented country, if in round 2 you can apply with a stronger application, do so. If your GMAT isn't high enough now and you can improve it, do so. If you can't, apply in round 1. If you're not sure, send me your GMAT and CV to my email and I'll check that out. Okay, this is a great question and I get it a lot. So can I use a reference which isn't my direct manager? And I'll even make this bigger. Who should I use? Should I use my manager's manager? He has a higher and he's more senior, or should I use my manager? London Business School would prefer to see a direct manager. Okay, just to be honest, they would prefer to see a direct manager. But if they don't see a direct manager, it's okay. I would say probably a third of my applicants don't use a direct manager. They don't want to tell their workplace that they're leaving. Okay, they'll miss a bonus, they'll miss a promotion, they'll miss money, they'll lose face if they don't get in. And I think this is okay. I probably would explain this in the optional essay or somewhere, but that's okay. It's okay not to use a direct manager. It's okay to use a previous manager. All good. What's the most unique thing? Location. I would say the unique aspects are location, definitely. The second one is the diversity of the class. And the class is very diverse with not just the 90% of foreigners, but again, the industries are in. Again, my study group. So, I had someone from working in the oil and gas industry. I had someone working in finance. I had someone working in consulting. I was a IT programmer, and I had a lawyer. Okay, so it's the diverse class. The location, of course, the caliber of the professors, etc. Clubs, so many advantages. I want to go and study again. It's amazing. What else? Okay, great question about the executive MBA versus a full-time MBA. Very, very good question. I think maybe send me your CV and your GMAT and I can help you there. But basically, there are two different things, okay? So executive MBA, you have to be working somewhere. You have to be okay with the commitment of time. And I would say the full-time MBA is more for career shifters. Now, again, I'm trying to make it black and white. It's not. I've seen many executive MBAs completely change their career after the executive MBA at London Business School. I can give you hundreds, not tens, hundreds of examples. But still, if I had to make it black and white, I would say that when you go to a full-time MBA, again, there's, it's a year and a half full-time, and you can be a programmer, you can be a lawyer, you can be an accountant, and you can go into consulting. You can be a techie and an artist, and you can go into oil and gas, okay? The executive MBA is less around a whole career transformation. And remember that 50% of the class are sponsored and they work in a company that pays for the MBA. So there's, LBS is a bit ambiguous, do they help them find a different job or not? But the other 50% are actively looking for jobs usually. So there is a lot of work with career placements for the executive MBA, but I would say it's less like the full-time MBA where basically a lot of the year and a half is finding you a job. So it's a bit less, and again, it really depends on you. But if you're a professional in a very specific industry and you don't have a problem finding a job, you're not worried about that, you just want to get the education and get the network, etc., then I wouldn't worry from the executive MBA. If you're coming from another country, you might not be a sponsored candidate, you're looking to do a shift, maybe in your geography, maybe in your industry, you're still young with 4, 5, 6, 7 years of experience, maybe the full-time is a bit more suited for you. But again, very specific question. Okay, so we'll discuss the essays in our next session. Again, it's exactly in 1 week, or down here if you're not watching this live. Definitely leadership attributes is a key factor. If you lead people at work on your extracurricular activities, amazing, mention it, mention difficulties, mention highlights. Okay, mention it in your CV, first bullet, led 3 people. If you don't lead people, that's our main problem. So you might be very senior, you might be a 5-year experienced lawyer, but in your office, lawyers don't manage people. So that's fine as well. You just need to mention it. You need to mention that you've owned projects, that you've helped interns, that you had some kind of management experience, maybe in university or in your extracurricular activities. I wouldn't be worried about that, but I would just try and emphasize them. So important. Okay, if you have 6 years of experience in 4 different companies, okay. Oh, can this be consistent with the choice of applying to an MBA? Okay, I'm not sure I know what the question is. Maybe I'm a bit tired. But basically, if you have 6 years of experience, great. And if you've worked in 4 different companies, there's a good thing and there's a bad thing about that. Good thing is you've had lots of experiences, and I hope, I'm not sure, that each job that you took was more and more senior. So I hope that you advance in your own way, which is maybe to jump from company to company. On the other hand, when I see 4 companies in 6 years, maybe I have a little red flag, or something's a bit bothering me. Why did you make so many transitions? So again, a very specific question. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but can you apply to London Business School? Yes. Next. And ask me privately if you want to discuss something else. Thank you, GMAT Club, for hosting. And correct, I don't know if that was the last question, but definitely we do have another session next week. I promise to work on it, where I'll actually be digging in to the full-time MBA application. I'll mention the other applications, but I'll dig into the full-time MBA application, every single essay, the online application, the references, everything. Okay, I can answer a couple more questions. I can see there's a couple more. Okay, diversity. That's such a great question. Is it just okay? So I don't even know how to answer this question. Diversity is diversity. Remember my what was it? Sea Waves Energy lawyer. He was diverse, although maybe his ethnicity, his background was the most overrepresented background. So you're right, an Indian male is an overrepresented background. An Indian male engineer is an overrepresented background. I don't know anything about you. Yes, there's a lot of candidates from India. It's not a secret. So in whatever background you are, you're probably not a unique background. Okay, sorry. I've seen probably every single background. But it's everything. Okay, it's nationality, it's geographics, it's industry, it's how unique you are. Let me give an example. An accountant at EY, that's very non-unique. Okay, I think a quarter of my candidates are accountants from Big Four companies. And LBS knows this and sees this. And actually at EY, you can also progress very quickly. You can start as an analyst and become a senior analyst. Then you're a consultant, a senior consultant, associate, senior associate, manager, senior manager. Every year you can actually change your title at least. And I've actually had someone who was at EY, and he mentioned, I've had 5 promotions in 3 years. Okay. And he put in brackets, usually takes 5 years or something like that. So although he was from a very overrepresented background, from an overrepresented industry, from an overrepresented gender, okay, it was a male, he and from an overrepresented company, LBS get probably more than tens and more than 3 digits. I don't know if it's hundreds or 100 candidates from EY. Yeah, Ernst & Young, big accounting firm, but still he showed he was unique. So as long as you show you're unique in some way, that will help to take the diversity ticket. But yeah, a lot of people aren't diverse, and then they need to show excellence. How can they show excellence? High GMAT, good undergraduate, great work experience. I'm not diverse, but I'm still very good. Okay. Should the professional work experience be in managerial level only if you apply for MIM? No, on the contrary. So MIM is for very junior people with under 2 years of experience. I would be very surprised if you have a managerial level, if you're senior, if you only have a year or 2 of experience. So on the opposite, if you're applying for a master in management degree, you need to have less than 2 years of experience. You need to be not senior. Okay, I would be surprised if your CV, the first line is I manage 15 people, I would reconsider applying to Master in Management. And I think we're nearly in the last question. I won't answer about other business schools. I'm sorry about that. But there's lots of MBA rankings, etc. Okay, so business with marketing and who's it for? Again, I don't really understand the question. So London Business School doesn't have a master in marketing, doesn't have an MSc in business, and okay, so there's only specific degrees, like we said, master in management or MBA. So go for one of those and take lots of electives in marketing, etc. Okay. Okay, great question about diversity again. So London Business School won't come and say, yeah, we have a cap. We've had too many French candidates. We've had already 16, and that's what we want. They'll never say that. But remember, they're building a diverse class. Okay, so if 500 French candidates apply, there's no way that 500 or even 4 or 3 or 2 or 100 French candidates will get into London Business School. So they won't say this, but obviously they're building a diverse class, and diverse is also nationality. So there isn't a cap. But there is, yes, you are one of your worries, and one of the spots you're fighting on is against your nationality or background, people like you. So if you're a woman from Bulgaria, which works in oil and gas, and there's 6 other women from Bulgaria working in oil and gas, I doubt it if all the 7 will get accepted. And I'll tell you why. Because it's very easy for London Business School to look at all the 7 and say, okay, she has 2 years of experience. She has 4. Okay. She doesn't manage people. She manages 3. She has a 720 GMAT. She has a 760 GMAT. So it's not just because of the cap. It's just when I have similar background people, it's just easier to compare between them, and then I can choose the best. And I can say, okay, I've chosen my 3 Bulgarian oil and gas women, and now I'll choose 2 more French out of the 4. And it's not French candidates, it's French technology engineers. And I'll choose 2. Okay, so it's more about building a diverse class. Getting to the end. Okay, that's it. Wahoo! So I think that's it for, and I'll save some questions for next time. Check us out on ARINGO.com. Like we said, if this isn't a live session, you'll see down here another session which talks about the London Business School application. And if not, if this is a live session, wait a week, same day, same time, same place, for my second part about how to write a stellar London Business School application. I've enjoyed this a lot. Thanks for your questions, and I'll see you again. Bye.